Hey everybody, October 7th here in the Midwest. And I want to talk about an item. It's going to be a rather long video about farm bailouts and bad planning. And, you know, I don't much want to get into too much of the finger pointing because that really doesn't do a lot of good. But there is a little bit about taking some responsibility that we need to have a conversation about. And, you know, have you ever noticed that when businesses fail, it's just business and not a fail. But when a farm fails, suddenly it's a national tragedy. And the tears start flowing, the flags start waving, and the taxpayers start writing checks. Well, I've got some news for you. Farms are a business, and it's time we start acting like that. Uh, Look, I get it. I'm from Missouri, and we all love that image of the small family farm, grandpa on his tractor, the red barn, the golden fields of grain in the sunset. But but that's not what most American farming looks like anymore. And when Washington talks about saving family farms, what they're really doing is handing out bailouts, handing out billions to the biggest corporate operations in the country. It's not about family farms, it's about protecting an industry that refuses to adapt. Um, and let's start with the data. And I know that's one of those things that most folks seem allergic to these days. Data, oh my. According to the USDA, there are about 1.9 million farms in the United States. They cover around 880 million acres, and that's nearly 40% of the country. But here's the catch: only about 5% of those farms uh, have revenue of over $1 million, which accounts for 80% of all farm revenue, by the way. Meanwhile, the three-quarters of the farms that make less than $50,000 a year in revenue, they're not, that's not living. That's a hobby. So we talk about helping farmers. What we're really doing is helping the 5% who already own most of the land and control most of the profits. Let's take a moment to talk about the China connection. Now let's talk about soybeans because they're the poster child for the problem, and they're in the news right now. Every year, anywhere from 20 to 40% of the soybeans grown in the United States is exported to China. That's tens of millions of tons. It's a massive global business, and when trade wars or droughts hit, who takes the hit? Not the corporations that own the farms, it's you do. Because when the market dips, the government steps in with bailouts. And those bailouts don't go to the small farms. They don't go to that small farmer down the road. They go to the massive corporations, the operations that are huge, the corporate players behind them, uh, the ones processing, storing, shipping, and selling to China. So, in reality, taxpayer dollars are being used to subsidize food for China. And profits for American agribusinesses that sell to China. Um, if your business makes money selling to China, good for you. Really, good for you. I'm happy for you. And if the profits of the American agribusiness sells to them, good. I'm glad for you. But if your business makes money selling to China, great. If it doesn't, well, that's not necessarily the American taxpayer's problem. But if the same businesses collapse every time because the trade wind blows a different direction, they demand a bailout. And let's be honest, that's not capitalism. It's not capitalism. It's corporate welfare. And all you gotta do is follow the money. I mean, let's name some names. And the big agricultural corporations: Cargill, Archer Daniels Midland, Bunge, Corteva, CHS, John Deere, Agco. These companies really kind of are the multi-billion-dollar companies that control the entire chain. From the seeds to the fertilizer to the equipment and to storage and to the exports. So when government bailouts, when the government rolls out the money, uh, guess where it ends up? Right back in the pockets of those same corporations. So small family farms, you see in the campaign ads, they're just a backdrop, just a photo op. They're not the ones actually going to get helped out. Meanwhile, between 2017 and 2022, the United States lost over 140,000 farms, most of them small operations. They didn't get saved. They got swallowed up. You know, uh, and this is part of a larger, war on the middle class. And here's where this all connects, because it's not just about farming. It's part of what's been going on, a much bigger war on the middle class in America that's been raging since the 1980s. Back then, we were told globalization would make everything cheaper and better. But what it really did was ship millions of American jobs overseas, gut local economies, and leave working families holding the bag. At the same time, tax policy started to increase incentivizing equity over earned income. If you make money by working, you're taxed at a higher rate than if you make money by owning the businesses. The system rewards the equity class. Yes, it always has, but it increased drastically in the 80s. And the bailouts, they follow the same logic. The money flows up to the owners. It's not trickle down, it's trickle up. And it moves up to the equity owners, the landholders, the corporate investors, not to the people who actually work the land. It's the same story you see in every sector. Profits are privatized and losses are socialized. And here's the bitter truth. When taxpayers bail out agribusiness, we're not saving the heartland. We're just funding another dividend check for someone who's never probably stood in a soybean field. Um, Bailouts, they're not a plan. And agriculture doesn't need another bailout. They need a plan. Uh, Bailouts are like slapping duct tape on a dam. It holds for a minute, but doesn't fix the problem. We should be rewarding the innovators, the innovations, not dependents. We should be incentivizing smaller, more diverse farms to rebuild, not rewarding the same top-heavy system that keeps failing every few years in rural America. The USDA has already got a definition for a small farm, and that's ones that do under $350,000 in gross cash income. Anything above that's a commercial farm. So why not tie the government aid to those scales? Tailor support based on need and region, not some abstract nostalgia. Because a farm in southern Missouri is not going to be the same as a farm in northern Iowa. And we have farms from Maine to California, Washington to Florida, all throughout this country. And they're different by region, they're different by what they produce. There's a lot of variations. And we can't just kind of throw money at it, and especially not, you'll notice through the emergency subsidies, those tend to go to the big grain crop farmers. And if they can't make a profit on their own consistently, then they need to save their pennies for when they have a bad year, not ask the American taxpayers for a bailout. Here's the hard truth. A lot of farmers voted for the trade war that blew up their own markets. A lot of this happened in the previous Trump administration, where we created a problem and China decided to go around us, and they started investing in other countries. They did it in Brazil with soybeans, they've done it in Argentina, Uruguay, several other countries, and they're now going to be doing it in Zimbabwe for the blueberry farmers. Yeah, blueberry farmers, you might want to look into that. Uh, you know, we've got to understand that we can't keep backing policies that hurt ourselves, and the people backed policies that blew up their biggest market, China. And they are turning around and they're asking the taxpayers to bail them out. That's not leadership. It's just bad business. Agriculture isn't sacred. It's a business. And when a business fails, it sells off its assets. It pivots. It adapts. It doesn't call the government. It doesn't ask for a check. It doesn't wrap itself in patriotism to justify why it deserves money. So the next time someone cries for a farm bailout, ask the same question you'd ask about any other business. What's in it for the American taxpayer? If you're producing food for us, for the American consumer, we got something to talk about. If you're producing food for profit so you can sell it to China, and you made a bad mistake, you bet on the wrong horse, well, I don't know that I should be bailing you out. I don't know that the American taxpayer should be bailing you out on that one. All right. Again, there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of discussion, but we really need to start sitting down, and we need to start discussing with each other without arguing or fighting. There is a need to potentially give taxpayer money to farmers in subsidies, but it shouldn't be a bailout. It should be about investments into the future, into what is going to be a better business for the American consumer, because it's the American taxpayer money. And for those who say we shouldn't give anything to the farmers, well, we need to incentivize the business for the American consumer. What is going to be best for us? We can't just let it go, and we can't just let it die. So we're stuck in between, and the only way out is through conversation and a plan. All right, have a wonderful day.